Yo, what's up, y'all? It is time for another weekly reading of Journey Through the Jungle of Purpose, Book 1, Into the Jungle. So, this is our third week of reading over here. So, we're going to be able to dive into a lesson today. First of all, we got to get through the first part, which is Mile 1, Into the Jungle. And then after that, we'll be in the lesson. So, Mile 1, Into the Jungle. Once Joshua finished praying, everyone departs the Manger Inn and begins a short walk out of town to the beginning of the trail that leads into the jungle. Joshua and his newfound companions pause for a moment at the trailhead to read a warning sign that is nailed to a tree. It says in big, bold letters, "Warning, this trail leads into the jungle of purpose, where conditions have proven to be volatile. Make sure you are prepared adequately with food, water, clothes, and anything else you think you need for your survival. Cell phone service is unreliable, and rescue cannot be guaranteed." Before Joshua can speak, Jonah cries out, "This is a bad idea. Let's turn around and head back." Joshua replies, "Why are you so fearful, Jonah? I'll be right here with you the whole time." "Me too," Ruth exclaims. "Yeah, don't worry," David says. "I'll rip anything that comes at us to pieces." Rahab jumps in, "And I already promised my followers that I was going to return in a few weeks with a new skin product, and I'm not leaving until I have something." "See?" Joshua says. "We're all in this together." Okay, let's go to our doom. At least I won't die alone," Jonah says sarcastically. With that, Joshua and his companions begin the walk along the dirt path, two by two, with Joshua in front. Tall, luscious green trees surround them on all sides. And now we get into the lesson. Lesson number 1. Are you listening? Are you really listening? And the scripture here is, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me." And that's John 10:27. So lesson 1.1, the five senses. You might hear me do a little improv with voice as this goes because the characters do like to chime in from time to time. Do you hear all these birds chirping around us? Do you see all these trees that surround us? Do you smell the morning dew on the ground? Do you feel that gentle breeze against your skin? I'm sure if we opened our mouths wide, we would have the unpleasant taste of a bug in our mouths. "What are you going on about, Josh?" That's Jonah there. Listening to God is a little different than what you might think of as listening. You listen with your ears, correct? Sure, you can say the two work hand in hand, but what if you can't hear? Does that mean you have no ability to listen? Maybe you can read lips. Maybe you can tell how somebody feels based on their body language. Maybe the way you smell tells the whole story of where you've been. Maybe a touch to your heart allows somebody to feel your emotions. See? You hear with your ears, but you listen with all your senses. If you don't have one sense, you have four more to back it up. There are five senses, but the mind helps all of them. Without the mind, your senses are useless. How can you see if your mind does not conceive light? How can you smell if your mind does not conceive scent? How do you taste if your mind does not conceive flavors? How do you touch if your mind does not conceive texture? How do you hear if your mind does not conceive sound? Train your mind, and your senses will follow. How does this apply to listening to God? Well, if you can truly listen with all your senses, and the mind is the helper to all the senses, then listening begins with the mind, and understanding begins with the senses. Your mind is a helper to the senses, and your senses are a helper to the mind. If you can neither hear, smell, touch, taste, or see, your mind would be lost. But thanks be to God who gave us five senses, so if one fails, we have four more to back it up. How can you know what God is doing if your mind can't conceive how God works. If your mind can't conceive how God works, how can you see God? If your mind can't conceive how God works, how can you feel God? If your mind can't conceive how God works, how can you hear God? God is moving all around us, but if your mind can't conceive how he works, you won't even know he's there. All this time, you've been crying out to God, and he's been right next to you the whole time. You need to train your mind to listen, and your senses will follow. So this is like a little exercise break here, okay? A little exercise break. So we're going to get up here in a second. Are you ready for some exercise? You mean besides this long walk? And that's Rahab enter, uh, getting into the conversation there. Exactly. I want you to stay standing. So we're going to go and stand on up. I'm not going to stand up, but you're going to stand up, okay? I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to read. So follow along with me here. So you're going to go ahead and get on up. Take 1 foot off the ground. That was easy, right? Okay, now close your eyes and take 1 foot off the ground. That was a little harder, right? Okay, now move closer to an object. In this case, something in your house, chair, tree. If you're outside, maybe you can stand next to a tree like we are in the jungle. And you're gonna put 1 finger on this object and close your eyes and take 1 foot off the ground. So you should have your eyes closed, 1 foot off the ground, and 1 finger on some object of some sort. It's a little easier, right? Awesome. So you see how your senses help each other? When you were standing on 1 foot, you had 2 senses in play. Your foot touching the ground and your sight. When you closed your eyes, you only had 1 sense to rely on. So you had to amplify your touch sense by using another point of contact, the finger to a tree or whatever object you decide to put your finger on to help maintain your balance. See how your sense of touch had to amplify to make up for the sense of sight? If you practice standing on 1 foot with your eyes closed enough, your mind would eventually adapt and you would no longer need a finger on the tree to help you maintain balance. Now here's one exercise you can try when you return home. Or in the case of you, since you are home, this is an exercise that you can try. We're not going to do it right now unless you want to pause the video. You can totally, you're watching this. You can pause the video if you want to. I'm going to keep on reading. Here's a little exercise you can try. Here's what you're going to want to do. First, you're going to want to put a hand over one eye and set a timer for 10 minutes. So you're going to put a hand over one of your eyes like this, set a timer on your phone or watch or whatever for 10 minutes. And once the timer beeps, keep the same eye covered and walk into a completely dark room. Pick the bathroom, close the door, closet that's completely dark, whatever part of your house that you got that's dark. Just walk in there, keep this eye covered as you're walking in. And then next, as you're standing in that room or that dark place, you're going to switch your hand to the opposite eye. And if you did it right, you'll be able to see clearly since your mind adapted one eye to the darkness. All right, break time over. Let's keep it moving. I'm going to share a quick story about a night in Vegas. Don't worry, there are no tigers involved. Several friends and I visited a restaurant in Vegas where we were completely immersed in darkness. I couldn't see a thing but the green from the waiter's night vision goggles. It was quite an experience. I had no idea what I was eating and had to rely on my senses of taste and smell to guess. I bit into an olive, and let me tell you, that was the worst olive I ever had. It was the worst. The worst. I don't like olives on a regular day, but something about biting into that olive in a dark room where my sense of taste was amplified was hashtag the worst. The worst. So now we move on to our thinking break exercise, and for this you're going to need yourself a piece of food of some sort here. So pause the video again, grab yourself some food, and I'm gonna keep it rolling. So grab a piece of food. What you're gonna do, I have a watermelon here, which is probably the worst thing to do with a book in my hand, but I'm gonna make it work. So you can grab a piece of food. You're going to take a little look-see at it. See, what does it look like? What does it look like? And then close your eyes and take a deep breath. What does it smell like? And then what you're going to want to do, keep your eyes closed. Keep your eyes closed after you take your deep breath and take a bite. What does it taste like? And with your eyes closed, just let those tastes marinate in. What does it taste like? And then just write it down. So, just to reiterate, what does it look like? Close your eyes, take a deep breath, smell it, keep your eyes closed, feel it. What does it feel like? And then take a bite out of it with your eyes closed. What sound does it make when you bite down into it? And what does it taste like? And that there is lesson number 1 of Journey Through the Jungle of Purpose, Book 1, Into the Jungle. And next week, we'll dive into lesson 1.2, A Supernatural Sense. But that's it for now. If you don't already, pick yourself up a copy, available on jungleofpurpose.com and on Amazon. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace out.